as much as any leader or ideology, what united the far-flung territories of ancient Rome into the cohesive social unit of the empire was a network of roads. So remarkable was the Roman road system that centuries after the empire's fall, people yet traveled its cobblestone pavements. Many who did so had no knowledge of the empire and attributed the building of the roads to the gods. This is Session 4, Ancient Rome, in a course titled History as an Evolution of Consciousness, and that is an aspect of a larger view, evolution of consciousness theory. In this session, we look at the ancient world's furthest-reaching civilization, ancient Rome. According to legend, Rome was founded when Rhea Silvia, daughter of the king of Alba Longa, set her newborn sons, Romulus and Remus, fathered by Mars, the god of war, adrift in a basket on the Tiber River. The brothers were rescued and nurtured by a she-wolf. As men, they returned to where they were rescued, and in honor of the wolf who had raised them, founded the city of Rome. Legend aside, Rome dates to the 12th century BC, and the conquest of what is today the Italian peninsula by a people from Asia Minor called the Etruscans. By the 6th century BC, Etruscan civilization had fallen into decline, and the city-state of Rome, which had been under the rule of despotic kings, overthrew the tyrannical Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, and in 509 BC established a republic. Under the Roman Republic, society consisted of a ruling or patrician class and a common or plebeian class. In accordance with the constitution, government was administered by a senate, and in place of a king, by 2 consuls appointed for 1-year terms. Initially, plebes were admitted to the senate, but were ineligible for the consul or other high positions. This led to a struggle between classes, which resulted in the drawing of a legal code, the opening of the consul, and the forming of open magistries. It also resulted in the legalization of marriage between plebes and patricians, which gave rise to an aristocracy composed of patricians and wealthy plebeian families. This aristocracy led Rome into numerous wars, which in 390 BC resulted in its capture and burning by the Gauls on the move out of modern-day France. Rome rebuilt and defeated the Latins, whose language would dominate the region until the 17th century. Victories over the Volscians and the Hernicans gave Rome control of the Central Peninsula, and between 343 BC and 290 BC, Rome defeated a coalition of Gauls, Umbrians, and Etruscans in the north, and of Samnites, Bruttians, and Lucanians in the south to command the length of the peninsula. Its position as a regional power secure, Rome set its sights on the Mediterranean's greatest sea power, the African city of Carthage in present-day Tunisia. The First Punic War, as the conflict between Rome and Carthage is called, lasted between 264 BC and 241 BC. It ended with the Roman conquest of Sicily, followed by Corsica and Sardinia. Matched by Rome on the sea, Carthage advanced into Spain to secure a foothold from where it could strike Rome by land. The Second Punic War began in 218 BC, when, in one of history's boldest ventures, the Carthaginian general Hannibal crossed the Alps, came at the empire from the north, and ravaged the Italian peninsula for years, only to be recalled to Carthage to defend the city and its territories against a Roman counterstrike led by Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. In 202 BC, Hannibal met defeat at Zama. Rome rose from the ashes of near destruction as the foremost power on the Western Mediterranean. In a series of wars, it defeated Macedonia, followed by Corinth, which brought Greece under Roman authority. In the Third Punic War, legions stole through the impenetrable walls of Carthage, raping, beheading, and bludgeoning tens, if not hundreds of thousands of the city's residents, only to sell those who survived into slavery. The fall of Carthage, the destruction of the city's harbor, and the salting of the region's farmland ended the Carthaginian Empire, whose territory became the Roman province of Africa. Campaigns brought Spain under Roman rule, and on his death, Attalus III of Pergamum bequeathed Asia Minor to Rome, which established it as the province of Asia. With its incorporation of Greece, Rome adopted much of the older civilization's art, religion, and philosophy. Greece's democratic ideals fared less well. In Rome, with the Senate and magistracies monopolized by the aristocracy, the general Pompey the Great, in 59 BC, formed a triumvirate in opposition to the Republic. His fellows were the patrician Marcus Licinius Crassus and the general Gaius Julius Caesar. Crassus died in 53 BC. Tensions built between the generals, and in an attempt to limit Caesar's power, Pompey threw his weight behind the Senate's order that Caesar disband his legions in Gaul. Caesar returned to Gaul, rallied his troops, crossed the Rubicon River, marched on Rome, and defeated Pompey in Spain, Greece, and Egypt. There, in Alexandria, Caesar fell in love with the beautiful exiled ruler Cleopatra. He ordered the death of Cleopatra's younger brother, who had wrested control of the empire from his sister, and appointed Cleopatra Queen of Egypt. To honor her position, he brought Cleopatra to Rome as his mistress, where she's believed to have given birth to a son by Caesar, and declared himself dictator for life, the imperator. Caesar's life, though, wasn't to last for long. On the 15th of March, or the Ides of March, in the year 44 BC, Caesar appeared before the Senate, which saw his rise to power as effectively ending the Republic. Before all, a group of senators attacked Caesar, and in a pool of blood, stabbed the man to death. The emperor, whose turn to power began with the crossing of the Rubicon, was no more. A nobility's attempt to restore the constitution and the power of the Senate, however, was thwarted by Mark Antony, who, after falling in love with Cleopatra and taking her home to Alexandria, returned to form a triumvirate with Marcus Aemilius Lepidus and Caesar's grandnephew Octavian. With the ouster of Lepidus, the triumvirate disintegrated into a civil war between Antony and Octavian that, in 31 BC, climaxed in the naval battle of Actium. Fearing defeat, Cleopatra, in command of the Egyptian fleet, and better known for her political manipulation than for her military prowess, fled to Alexandria. Fearful for Cleopatra's safety, Antony withdrew and followed. As Octavian poised to overrun the city, Antony received false word that Cleopatra had been killed, and in his grief committed suicide. Cleopatra knew that to save her life, the life of her son by Caesar, and her position as queen, she had to win over the victor, Octavian. Historians believe that she had sent the letter falsely informing Antony of her death, knowing that he would take his life, and thereby free her to seduce Octavian. When her efforts to woo Octavian had failed, and she faced his plan to exhibit her in Rome as a spoil of Egypt's conquest, Cleopatra took her own life. Conqueror of the East, Octavian took the title of Augustus, Emperor of Rome. Augustus marked the first in a line of Roman monarchs, Tiberius, Caligula, and Claudius, that reached a despotic high with Nero, or Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus. Centuries of warfare and internal dissent had left Rome a mud-block, wooden-roofed slum of thousands. In the year 64 AD, fire broke out and reduced much of the city to ashes. Nero, so brutal as to have his mother executed for criticizing his wife and his wife executed for criticizing his mistress, was accused of starting the fire. To bolster public opinion, he shifted blame to a fledgling religious group, the Christians. In an act of terror, he lit the streets by covering hundreds of men, women, and children with tar, hoisting them up poles and setting them on fire. With the promise of free grain, Nero conscripted thousands to begin construction of his vision of Rome, the grand and imposing marble city that would be home to the Pantheon and Flavian Amphitheater. He financed Rome's rebuilding with high taxes and by plundering the provinces. Revolts broke out in Judea and Britain, and in 68 AD, the Praetorian Guards declared Nero Rome's greatest enemy. Nero fled the city and, pursued by the guard, committed suicide. After Nero came the Flavian rulers, Alba, Otho, and Vitellius. The latter was followed by Vespasian and his sons Titus, during whose reign Mount Vesuvius erupted and destroyed Pompeii and Herculaneum, and Domitian, so brutal as to be murdered. Domitian's death brought forth the era of the 5 good emperors. Based on ability and integrity, each emperor selected and legally adopted his successor. The last, Marcus Aurelius, however, was succeeded by his biological son, Lucius Aelius Aurelius Commodus, a tyrant who was also murdered. The reigns that followed culminated in 306 AD with that of Constantine the Great, who, in a desperate attempt to hold the empire together, proclaimed religious freedom. This opened the way for Christianity to become the official religion of the empire. Constantine established a new seat of government at Byzantium, which became Constantinople and today is Istanbul. After his death, the provinces faced a period of internal dissent and barbarian invasions. Are there parallels between the politics seen in ancient Rome and the politics seen in nations today? From the standpoint of evolution of consciousness theory, how do we interpret the structure of Roman society? What did the rise of Caesar and the fall of the Republic denote? With our look at ancient Rome, we complete session 4 in our course on civilization's ascent from the standpoint of evolution of consciousness theory. Our course titled History as an Evolution of Consciousness continues in Session 5, Other Early Civilizations.